It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Thursday, April 3rd, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is looking forward to where Carsen Dorwart will fit into the remainder of this Flyers season.
I kind of know.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade now, and I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. To keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on all your favorite socials, and of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Thursday, and that is when we usually dig into an NHL draft prospect. We're going to do that today with Lynden Lakovic, who's a very, very big dude. So excited to talk about that. Speaking of big dudes, Jack Berglund has been back in action over in Sweden. So we're going to check in with him, as well as Carson Bjarnason, whose Brandon Wheat Kings are in the WHL playoffs right now. One bit of news that's sad news related to the Flyers before we talk about Carson Dorwart. Mark LaForest passed away in the last couple of days, who was a goaltender from the late 80s and had limited NHL time, but did spend two solid seasons with the Flyers from 87 to 89 and was a big part of one of those teams when Ron Hextall was injured to start a season and wound up opening the season for the Flyers that year. Also spent some time with Hershey in the AHL way back when Hershey was the Flyers affiliate.
Wow, yeah, that's a long time ago.
I know, long time ago, but very sad to hear that. So condolences to his friends and the family.
Yeah, it sucks.
So Carson Dorwart spent his first day at practice yesterday with the Flyers, and it looks like he'll likely be the 4C for Saturday's game against Montreal. And given that, looking at the lines from practice yesterday, he was on that fourth line with Nick Deslauriers and Garnet Hathaway. And I think it's an interesting combo for him for the first time out. I think it is important to have a guy like Deslauriers or Hathaway on the line with him. I'm not necessarily sure both of them is the right move here.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know if you need both, but certainly Hathaway and he have similar attributes. He's a little bit more of a scorer than Hathaway, but Hathaway once in a while will get some offense going. So I do think it's good. I think he plays a similar style. I think he plays a fourth line style. Now we'll just see, how far along he is. They definitely should give him, 3 games there, see what he looks like. And then they could, if it's overmatched, then, then he could watch for a little bit. But yeah, this is good. It enables him to burn his year of ELC. It enables him to get some experience, and fans get to see somebody new because they didn't get any call-ups from Lehigh. So it solves a lot of things.
It really does. And the not having the call-up situation and not being able to rotate somebody else in there is been, a real issue for us and for the Flyers, I think. And, especially leading up to Torts getting fired, it was, I think, one of the main issues there. But that being said, we also saw that at practice per Jordan Hall that he was on the second power play unit during practice as well, which I think is a good thing. You just want to kind of see how he operates in those circumstances and can he be coached? And I think putting a guy on a power play unit in practice is exactly how you find out those things.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if he'll get power play time in that game. Maybe they'll throw him a little bonus on a shift or two, but it depends how many power plays they get. So yeah, I wouldn't count on that.
Yeah, I think so. But I am very excited to see a new guy out there like we were just talking about. And I wonder, given that, if that fourth line will get some additional playing time.
I guess it depends how they play. I think it's going to, I've seen guys make their debut and they get that 8 minutes, and you're just like, all right. Or sometimes they'll get like 12 if they're effective. So I do think it's gonna work that way.
Yeah, and of course we'll get the rookie lap, which is
Oh yeah.
always a fun thing.
Yep.
To see. This is actually one of my favorite times of the year, regardless of how the Flyers are doing. Just because across the NHL, you get to see so many rookie laps and so
Right.
many first NHL goals. Like you see that for a little bit at the beginning of seasons, and then you get it a lot at the tail end of the season as well. So I just really love all of that.
Yeah, me too.
Even like seeing Ryan Leonard take his rookie lap, who I love him, but very sad he's on the Capitals.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah. He's
think.
he's a great kid. And
Yeah.
there's, at some point on a future show, we could talk about some of the guys that are going back to college and didn't sign their ELCs and why. And there's some things going on.
Yeah, I think so. And the result of Dorwart getting some ice time here is Ali Lixell and Rodrigo Abel seem to be the odd man out for this upcoming game if, in fact, Delorier sticks on that fourth
Right.
line, which again would not be my choice to do. I know Lixell should not be a fourth liner, but I would still put him out
I
there.
would too, because I feel like his play has been justified. I feel like Abel's has been pretty good, but he's had some up and down play. And
Right.
because he is a center, he'd be the logical,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So that's what I would do. But, we'll see if it changes when
Yeah.
it comes to the game. But for right now, it looks like Delorier and Garnet Hathaway will be Dorwart's line mates out there. And speaking to your point of some of the guys that signed versus didn't sign, we were surprised that Ty Murchison got his ELC this season. He plays for Arizona State, or did this year.
Yeah.
And, the Phantoms actually signed him to an ATO, even though that ELC doesn't kick in until next year. So he has now also joined the Phantoms. Did not play in yesterday's game yet, but I think it's really interesting that he's done that for the remainder of this Flyers season.
Yeah, I think he doesn't have the pull that some of these other guys do, so he has to take what he can get, and that's fine. He's not going to get a quicker path to free agency
Oh,
down the
sure.
line. I mean, that's just.
He's
But
not good enough to.
no, he's not. I mean, that's the reality.
Right. So he had signed that ELC last week and was a fifth round selection in 2021. So this is definitely like a long road, go through
Yes.
the minors and see what happens kind of guy. I think it is interesting. So Murchison is newer to getting to the Phantoms, but neither he nor Alex Ciernik have played yet. And that right now it's Luchanko and Gorbankin are the only two newer guys that have gotten solid ice time with the Phantoms thus far. Even Giovanni Smith hasn't played. So I just find that really interesting that are the Phantoms trying to solidify what their lineup is for the AHL playoffs and kind of paring down who actually gets games as
Yeah,
the season goes on.
they may be doing that, although Smith is very effective. I don't know if I would be paring him down, because there'll be a use for him in the playoffs if
Yeah,
they
he
want
may
it.
be banged up too.
He
Like,
could
who
be.
knows?
The way he plays, that's entirely possible. So I think that's it. The other thing is I'm sort of on this Carter Sutherland watch. I'm pretty sure he had a nice goal in a recent game, and he is unsigned. And so
Right,
I would have signed Sutherland over Murchison, if I was in charge. And I
right.
still don't know why Sutherland's not. I get that he had that, issue, that medical issue, but seems to be over it now. I know he didn't have the best season, but you also have to give him time to rebound off of that. There's talent there.
Right, and the Flyers have 4 remaining contract spots, for this year. Obviously, that'll change once, July 1 hits and
Yes.
the contracts reset, and there'll be a bunch that'll drop off as well, but I think, maybe they're being stingy with it, but it seems that Southern would be a good option to sign this year, and, maybe they will. But, all good questions to ask, and it also looks like they are sticking with the updated D pairings that we saw in the last game
Yep.
with Sealer and Sanheim together, York and Drysdale together. So that's something to keep an eye on if that changes. But so far, they're sticking with it.
I mean, one of the big reasons why you never saw that's my New York accent coming out, saw York and Drysdale together is because of their size. John would never have done it because he doesn't view them as, NHL regular defensemen as far as size goes. So he never would have put those two together.
Yeah, probably. All right. Well, there are more Flyers prospects out there doing some work, and we're going to check in on two of them, Carson Bjarnason and Jack Berglund, coming up next.
March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. I would go with the Houston Cougars, my alma mater. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around, so visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long.
On tomorrow's show, we'll check in with the latest with the Flyers as they head to Montreal for yet another game against the Habs. So close. I'm still mad at the schedule gods. Very weird this year.
Difficult game, too. The Habs are hot.
Yeah, they really are. And they're not perfect, but they're making things difficult for everyone they're playing against. Recently, we have been talking quite a bit about the goaltending problem and how to solve it. And, we mentioned kind of briefly about Carson Bjarnason and where he is, but we thought we'd dig into where he is a little bit more right now. As we know, he's with the Brandon Wheat Kings in the WHL, and they made the playoffs this year, which is a good thing, unlike the previous year. But it's been a struggle for them. So they were in 5th place in the conference, and so they're facing the number 4 team in Lethbridge in their first round series, and they're kind of getting their butts kicked here.
Yeah, it's not great. I mean, he's had a pretty good year. I think there's absolute development that has happened, but I don't think it's happened fast enough for me to want to put him in the AHL, and that's something we sort of, danced around in recent episodes. But the more I look, the more I talk to people, the more I think he's better off going back for another year, I think.
Yeah, he's still only 19 years old, and I think that, based on what I've seen from him when he has played with the Flyers in the preseason or the rookie game, like, he has a lot of work to do. And I
Yeah.
watched a bunch of video on him from the playoffs, like in these last 3 games that they've played, because they're down 3-0 in this 7-game series so far. And he did leave game 1 early a little bit because of a collision with a little over 5 minutes to go. So who knows how that's affecting him in the other games, but he did play the full 2 other games since then. And game 1 also, he faced 43 shots on goal. So a lot of work, but only stopped 37 of them, 6 goals against in that game. And I would say there was a mix of the lack of quality defense in front of the net in terms of clearing guys out, right? A lot of guys were getting clear shots on Bjarnason, pretty close to net front, like just outside the crease, and it was making it very difficult for him. But that being said, he also had a clear view of a lot of the shots coming his way and didn't stop, I think, some of them that he should have been. And I think up close, he needs a lot of work when the action is up close to him. That would be my main observation of what I've seen.
Yeah, I think he faces a lot of shots, which is good because you do want a guy to see a lot of rubber. The other parts that you're talking about aren't great, but that's just kind of how it goes sometimes. He is going to be 20 June 30th, so he is on the young side, and that's why I'm going to be I'm going to play it safe with this guy. There's no reason to throw him in the Phantoms. You can't let what's happening at the NHL level affect his development. It's not his problem.
No, it's not. And I think being the kind of elder statesman, so to speak, at the junior level will be good
Yes.
for him
Oh, absolutely.
because, again, there's some really good skaters and really fast skaters in that league in the WHL. And I think that it'll be good practice for him, honestly. And who knows what Brandon will be like overall next year.
And he'll
But
play more there than rather than be a tandem guy in the AHL too.
yeah, and I would say in game 3, which they still lost, but he saved 22 of 24, and I would say it was more of a scoring problem on Brandon's part
Right.
that, for the skaters than it was a goaltending problem. I will
Okay.
100% believe that.
Yeah.
Game 4 was last night, which was after we recorded, so we don't know if they got eliminated or
Right.
not as of now, but I think that even if they are eliminated, I don't know if they could bring him to the Phantoms on a ATO or
ATO,
something
no, I
just
don't
to
think
get
so
him.
because he's
I don't think
19. I
Yeah,
don't think they
that's
can.
true. I don't think they can either, but I think, he'll have a very important off season. That
Yes.
is for sure here. Now, Jack Berglund, on the other hand, has had a bit of a rough season. He was the second round pick in 2024, so just last year. He does not have an ELC yet, which is to be expected,
No,
but
that'll come. That's fine.
it'll come, and I think it'll come next year.
Yeah,
That is
probably.
my supposition. His 19th birthday is next week, so happy early birthday
Yeah, good for him.
for Jack Berglund. And he was injured in December, but has been back in action since February 15th, so about a month and a half. He's played in 11 games with 1 goal and 9 assists, so pretty
That's good. Good
solid.
production.
And what's interesting is that he's been playing with the U20 squad on his main club in Sweden, but he's been on loan to a different club playing in HA, so the
Right.
second tier league there. So he's been playing some sort of junior hockey and some pro big
He's
boy
playing a lot,
hockey.
which is, I guess, they're trying to get him caught up in development, which is hard to do
Right.
with the injury he had, some time he's missed. So I get what they're doing.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So, and especially because this team he's with in HA is in the playoffs in that
Right.
league right now. The team is up 1 game to nothing in their semifinal of that
Okay.
playoffs right now, and he has been playing second line left wing for that club, averaging around 14:30 time on ice. He's gotten into a fight. He's been very active in the play, and so I think your point is fair that they're just trying to catch him up and he's trying to get as much work in as he possibly can. But I think that when all is said and done, we'll see if he gets at SHL time with his main club next year. I think that'll be an indicator of how ready he is to come over to North America.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm looking to see if his father, Christian Berglund, is a coach, but it doesn't seem to be because sometimes that'll happen too. Like, hey, dad's a coach on another team. Go play there for a while too.
Mm, fair, fair. Yeah. So, game 2 of his playoff series that he's on is tonight. So we'll see if that team makes it to the final and he gets more experience this year. But I ultimately think that signing him next year is the right option. I
Yes.
think they will sign him.
Yeah, there's
I think,
definitely they will sign him.
he's 6'4". I mean, and he's a big boy. Like he's like I said, he's fighting
Yeah.
because he can, because
You're
I'm
not
sure
in a
he's
rush to sign these guys anyhow, like you are,
yeah,
guys in the Canadian Hockey League. It's different.
it is different. And he's a winger, so there's room and there's
Oh yeah.
time here. There's a lot
Yeah.
of runway here. And I think it would also be helpful to see if he can play a full season and not get hurt and
Right.
just see what that looks like. I
Yeah.
think that's important as well.
It is important.
So, looking at his kind of overall regular season stats here with the U20 team, only played 15 games there, but 22 points. So he was
Okay.
obviously on a good path
Yeah.
there. And again, he played 17 games at the SHL level, which is really good for him to have gotten that experience. And we'll see how these playoffs go in HA. And again, I think he's a guy that's gonna be a little bit of a longer development path, but will be
Yeah, I
worth
think
it
so.
in the end.
Yeah, I think all those things are true, and I do think it'll be worth it. I like his head on his shoulders. He's not a top 6 guy, but that's okay.
Right. That is definitely okay, and, a tall Swede is always welcome in Flyers land, I am sure. The draft, of course, it will be here before you know it. We're continuing our series looking at draft eligible prospects, and we are going to continue that next, looking at Lynden Lakovic. There is nothing like watching women's basketball live, the energy of the crowd, the sound of sneakers on the hardwood. And if you want to catch a game in person, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever. Game Time's new feature, Game Time Picks, filters out the fluff and shows you only the best deals on great seats. You don't have to waste time scrolling through thousands of tickets. I've used Game Time to get tickets to a New York Liberty game. Really good time and really great seats from Game Time. And Game Time Picks even highlights their super deals, giving you the best bang for your buck with seat views before you buy, no surprise fees, and their lowest price guarantee. You can book with total confidence. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, Russ, Lynden Lakovic. He is a left winger, another 6'4" guy. Speaking of Jack Berglund's
Yep.
height, listed at 190. I don't know if that's still the case.
Probably a
From
little
when
heavier, but not a lot.
Yeah, yeah, he did, play center when he was younger,
Yeah.
but right now he's mostly been playing winger. He's a little bit older than some of the other guys
Mhm.
we've looked at, with a December birthday, and the thing about his season this year is that he is on the Moose Jaw Warriors in the WHL, which is the worst team in
Yeah.
the Eastern Conference of the WHL. So it has not given him a ton of opportunity just because he's on that weaker team, but he has absolutely made the most of it,
Oh, he's
right?
having a terrific year considering. I think so. He's another one of these guys that I look at as a high floor guy. And so,
Hmm.
as the high floor guy, I think there's a real value for that kind of player in this draft. And so if you're looking at him and he's 6'4" and he's probably going to be 215 when it's all said and done, that's a good package. If there's a chance like Pierre-Luc Dubois, you could play him at center, which I always think there's a chance that some coach is going to look at him and say, "Well, man, if we put him on a little longer development path and he could be a 6'4" center, we might want to try that." So who knows? Who knows if that happens for him or not? But that is something that's in his back pocket. I like him. He plays power play. He plays penalty kill. He is really good on the power play. Like he's an effective guy on the power play for sure. And that's something where it's not all size related. He has a really good shot. And so I looked at his shot chart. And what's interesting is there's a mix between net front scoring and like scoring from 12 feet out from like a wrist shot. And
Right.
that's a good mix because he gets 62% on net, which is a lot. That's a high percentage.
Yeah, that's something I noticed in the highlight reels is that there was a variety of goals being
Yes.
scored there that was really good. And that, like, when he's out there, he is so good at finding the open space to
Yeah.
take that shot, right? He's going to take the best shot he can take, but he doesn't like waste time doing it or look for the perfect shot either. He just knows how to find that space and takes the shot. It's like he has this incredible instinct
Hmm.
and isn't overdoing it. And I don't know how to explain that, but when somebody's overdoing it
Yeah.
when they're not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do know what you're saying. I mean, he gets 28% defensive zone starts. Instat have provided a lot of these stats for me, but also he's smart, and so like that's where he finds the open space and knows where to go. Doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He will use his body. He's not like tremendously physical. Maybe that as he gets stronger, that comes down the line. So this is a good package. Like this is the kind of guy that teams are going to look at him and say, okay. Not the fastest guy. Maybe we can improve that, but he's already got the
Mhm.
size. He's already got the shot. He's smart. He could be a good second line guy. Like that would be like his zenith there.
Right. Now, looking at the rankings here for him, the average is about 14. I've seen as high as 10 and as low as 27, which is, I think, a pretty wide swath
It
here.
is.
You had him at 10. So why do you have him on the high end of this scale here?
High floor guy, possibly could play center down the line just because there's a chance, and really outperforming the kind of team that he's on. If he was on like London, what would we say about him? He would have a lot more points.
Right. Now, he is the top scorer on Moose Jaw
Yeah.
by a 10-point margin in their regular season. He's first in goals and second in assists on the team. So that goes to your point, right?
Yeah, imagine
About
if he's on another team like Shot Creation, how much gets
right.
created for him?
Probably very little, you
Right.
know? So, and that's what's interesting because he is that play driver, right?
Yes.
I'm sure he creates for other people that goes nowhere as well,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, that always is a thing too. His puck battles early in the year was at 42%. It's up to 45. You put another 10, 15 pounds of muscle at him and it'll be well over 50. And so that's good. And he does take faceoffs early in the year. He was at 30%. He's at around 25. So that's something where I think when he gets stronger, he'll be better at it, even if he's just a winger that takes more faceoffs than the normal winger.
Yeah, and I do think it's interesting because with a guy this size that has that skill, and even though you are at the high end and
Hmm.
you see that high floor and the center potential, just given his size, one might expect him to potentially go sooner than the
Yes.
rankings would suggest because people just like size, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll also shake my fist that I was high on Teddy Stiga too, and look how he's doing. He's a pretty exciting player. But this is a big player. And so he is going to get the benefit of the doubt for that, but he also is smart. I think he'll be a guy that I think more people will come around to where I have him after the combine. I think they'll see him at the
Yeah,
combine and then kind of say, "Oh, this is a package here." That's what I think.
interesting. And I think from a Flyers perspective, given where he is, even if you're taking him at where you have him ranked, right,
Yeah, it'll be
Russ?
lower than that though. But yes, it would be if he gets drafted, usually like 3 or 4 or 5 spots. So it'll be somewhere around 14, 15, I think is probably where he'll get drafted.
Right. So that is interesting for the Flyers because the Flyers don't have I think that zone is probably not somewhere where the Flyers are gonna be. I think,
Well,
like
that's true. But what you do is, so let's just say, and this will aggravate people because they're at 7 now, I think. Let's just say they're at 8, right? Because eight's kind of where I think they might end up. So if they're at 8, and then I don't know what the next one will be, 21, and they see he's on the board still 14, and there's a team that's 15, they've got an extra first round pick. They could finagle that if they want to get this guy.
right.
And getting a guy like this would track with what the front office would want, but also like what works in the league. If he gets a little faster, he could be a real weapon.
Right. And that's what makes it interesting. And I think, as we get closer to the draft, we're going to look at the different tiers of players, not necessarily rank them, but look at
Right.
the tiers based
Yeah, the
on where
grouping.
the Flyers picks are,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And say, who would we pick at this pick, whether or not the Flyers trade one of these first round picks or not. Like, who's in the tier of guys that'll be available at that slot. And so this does seem like somebody that they would have to potentially move up a few spots to get from either the Oilers pick or the Avs pick, whichever one that is.
Yeah. So let's say it's the Avs, and let's say the Avs, make it to the conference final. I have no problem trading that pick to get this guy if I know he's the next pick and the other team will trade with me and I can get him. I have no problem doing that.
Yeah. All right. Again, another very interesting and appealing prospect to add to our list, which is on our draft coverage spreadsheet, which you can find a link to in our show notes, as well as pinned to our Twitter and Blue Sky accounts for your viewing pleasure. It has a list of everybody we've covered so far, their approximate draft ranking, and a link to the episode on YouTube where we talked about that player. So very handy dandy for you.
It's getting long. We're going to start
we're
adding a lot to it.
approaching 20 guys so far. So not too shabby for the beginning of April, I would say.
No, I think we're doing good.
Yep. That will do it for today's show. We will be back to talk Flyers versus Habs and the latest with the team approaching the tail end of the season. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. If you've got mailbag questions or Flyers thoughts, let us know on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. It brings you daily league-wide stories that matter with local coverage you love from Locked On. I'm there Fridays and Saturday for the Women's Hockey Report. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.